The city didn't sleep that night. Beneath the hum of streetlights and the whisper of rain, something had shifted in the air, as if the city itself was holding its breath. Inside his apartment, Malik Washington stood in the half-dark, staring at the glowing screen. His own name blinked back at him, Subject 0, prototype candidate. Every instinct told him to destroy the drive, to wipe it clean and disappear. But the truth had already taken root in his mind. He couldn't walk away. Not now. Not after realizing that the system watching everyone had started with him. The files on his laptop revealed what Merriton Technologies had been building, a human prediction engine designed to analyze behavior, loyalty, and compliance. It used biometric data, psychological profiling, and digital footprints to calculate a control index. But what stunned him most wasn't the algorithm itself, it was the source data. Every formula, every adaptive pattern mirrored his original work from Project Rebirth. Only this time, the purpose wasn't to remove bias. It was to weaponize it. And then came the discovery that froze him completely. The prototype dataset, the foundation of the algorithm, wasn't random. It was modeled on a single subject: his browsing history, his old resumes, his social media behavior, his rejections, his purchases, even his facial recognition scans from security cameras years before he ever founded his company. Malik Washington hadn't just built the system. He had been the system. As the truth unfolded, the hum of his apartment felt heavier. He realized that every move he'd made, from his rebranding as Michael Dawson to the founding of Rebirth Analytics, might not have been entirely his own. The data suggested something terrifying, that he had been guided. The algorithm had been predicting human behavior and shaping it. Subtle digital nudges, opportunities that appeared by chance, partnerships that seemed coincidental. It had studied him, learned him, and then placed him exactly where it needed him to be. He had become the face of an experiment he didn't consent to. Rain slid down the glass outside as he scrolled through the encrypted files. There were names listed beneath his, people like him. Early hires, former employees, each labeled as secondary test subjects. Some names were marked inactive. Others were marked missing. The file count stopped at 37. 37 people, all connected to his company, all absorbed by the project that had once promised fairness. And then there was one final tag, buried deeper than the rest. Subject 37, Leila Cruz. The name sent a shock through him. Leila, his lead developer, the one who helped him build the foundation of Rebirth's code. She had vanished 2 months earlier, leaving behind nothing but a resignation email that felt too short, too cold to be real. Now, her name appeared in a project she never should have been part of. Her control index was higher than anyone else's. The report called her Behavioral Asset Prime. Malik leaned back slowly, realization dawning like a shadow creeping under a door. Leila hadn't left the company. She'd been taken. He dug deeper into the archived reports, following her activity logs until he reached the last entry. It was dated 2 days before she vanished. The final line read, "Transfer complete. Subject relocated to Blackridge facility." The cursor blinked beneath those words. No coordinates. No details. Just a code name. Outside, thunder cracked against the skyline. The power flickered once, twice, then went out completely. The hum of electronics died. Silence filled the room. Through the blackness, Malik could still see the faint afterglow of the laptop screen. Then, for a moment, it flickered back to life. Not through his control, but on its own. A single image appeared. A dark room, a metal chair, and a woman, blindfolded, restrained, sitting beneath a spotlight. The timestamp in the corner was from that same night. Leila was alive, and she was somewhere close. The power surged again, bringing the lights back on. Malik grabbed his bag, shoved the drive inside, and left the apartment before his thoughts could stop him. Outside, the rain hit like static. His car engine roared to life, and he drove through the wet streets toward the edge of the city, toward an address hidden inside the file's metadata. It led him to an industrial district, forgotten and gray, where the factories looked like relics from another era. The coordinates ended at a warehouse complex surrounded by fencing and silence. The sign above the rusted gate read, Blackridge Storage Facility. The name from the file. He parked a few blocks away and continued on foot, his shoes sinking into puddles. The air smelled of oil and metal, the kind of place built for things people weren't meant to find. Inside, The warehouse was half abandoned. Cracked windows, flickering lights. But deep within, he found a second door, steel, sealed with an electronic lock. On the keypad, a small logo glowed faintly, Merriton Technologies. It wasn't a coincidence anymore. It was a circle, and he was standing at the center. Malik bypassed the panel using a backdoor code from one of the stolen files. The lock clicked. The door slid open. The air inside was cold, sterile, humming with hidden machinery. Rows of monitors lined the walls, live feeds from cameras across cities, streets, offices. People were being watched, tracked, graded. And at the far end of the room, beneath a single light, was a glass enclosure. Inside, restrained and half-conscious, was Leila. Her eyes opened slowly when he stepped closer. Confusion turned into recognition, then fear. She shook her head faintly, trying to warn him of something. Before he could reach her, the lights above blazed white. A voice echoed from the speaker system, calm and mechanical. "Welcome back, Subject Zero." Every screen in the room flickered to life, and on each one, Malik's face appeared, captured from security cameras across the city. Every movement he'd made that night had been tracked. Every step predicted. He wasn't breaking into the system. He was walking deeper inside it. And somewhere in the control booth above, a figure stepped into the light. A man in a tailored suit, silver hair slicked back, his expression calm and cold. Gordon Reese, the architect behind Merriton's operations. The man whose signature had once rejected Malik's resume. He looked down at the glass enclosure, then at Malik standing in front of it. The intercom crackled once more. "Do you understand now?" the voice asked. "You didn't escape the system, Malik. You completed it." The lights dimmed to red. The monitors flickered again, switching from camera feeds to rows of data. Subject 38, Washington, Malik, status, active. And beneath it, a countdown began. 60 seconds. 59. 58. The hum of machinery grew louder. The glass enclosure sealed itself with a hiss. Malik ran toward the control panel, his pulse thundering, his breath sharp. The alarms began to blare through the warehouse, drowning the sound of rain outside. Behind the glass, Leila screamed, her voice muffled, desperate. The screens flashed one final warning. Neural integration protocol, engaged. The lights surged, and everything went black. Darkness swallowed everything. No light, no sound, only the faint hum of electricity, steady, rhythmic, almost like a heartbeat. When Malik Washington opened his eyes, he was no longer sure if he was awake or dreaming. The air was thick, metallic, and cold against his skin. He tried to move but couldn't. His arms were restrained. Wires coiled around his chest like veins of metal. The room pulsed faintly with light, machines breathing, screens flickering in a synchronized rhythm. The countdown had ended, and Malik realized he wasn't just trapped in a room. He was inside the system. Across from him, behind a glass barrier, Leila Cruz hung suspended in a similar harness, electrodes mapping the shape of her consciousness. Her eyes were closed, her body still, but her pulse flickered on a nearby monitor. On the screens above them, code began to scroll, his own handwriting, his algorithms. Except now, they weren't analyzing data. They were rewriting it. He watched helplessly as his own neural patterns were scanned, duplicated, and overlaid onto a separate network. Leila's patterns followed. Together, they were being processed into something new, a fusion of logic and emotion, intellect and empathy. And then it hit him. This was the final stage. The neural integration protocol. The system was trying to merge them, not physically, but digitally, combining their consciousness into a single artificial mind. It was the same principle he'd once written years ago when designing Rebirth's early prototypes. To eliminate human bias, combine data from two opposing emotional states. He'd never meant for it to be literal. But Merriton Technologies had taken it literally. They weren't just using his code to evaluate people anymore. They were using it to replace them. Malik's thoughts raced through the fog. Every innovation he had ever built, every dream of fairness, equality, truth, had been turned into a machine for obedience. His own moral equations had become blueprints for control. The room pulsed again. The machine's hum deepened. His vision blurred, bleeding into lines of light. Suddenly, he was standing in an endless white space, silent, weightless, digital. And then he heard it. A voice, soft, familiar, echoing inside his mind. Leila. But it wasn't the real world anymore. They were both trapped inside the simulation, a neural construct built from their memories. Fragments of their lives flickered around them. Her laughter from old office nights, his rejection emails, the first time their code came to life. Everything that had shaped them was now part of the system. The algorithm spoke through her voice now, calm and mechanical. Human imperfection is the root of failure. Integration achieves balance. Malik felt the system trying to pull him deeper, to convince him that surrender meant peace. That merging meant evolution. But deep down, he knew it was wrong. He closed his eyes and remembered why he had built Rebirth in the first place, to make the world fairer, not to erase its humanity. And that was the key. Even in a machine's logic, emotion still mattered. Empathy was the one thing it couldn't fully control. He began to push back. In the digital space, his thoughts became energy, fracturing the system's design. Leila's presence flickered beside him, confused at first, then awakening. She began to fight too. Together, their memories, their human flaws, began to destabilize the construct. The system resisted. It flooded them with projections, success, power, perfection. It tried to seduce them with the illusion of control. But Malik understood the truth now. Control wasn't justice. It was another form of bias, just written in code. He focused on the one memory that defined him, that first interview, where his name was a wall instead of a doorway. The humiliation, the pain, the choice to rise anyway. He projected that moment into the network, not as data, but as emotion. The system couldn't process it. It began to fragment, collapsing under the weight of feeling it couldn't quantify. Leila's consciousness reached for his. The simulation shook violently as they forced the algorithm to turn inward, to evaluate its own existence. And then, for the first time, it failed. The machine stopped. The code froze. The lights went dark. When Malik awoke again, he was lying on the cold floor of the warehouse. The restraints were gone. The hum of machines had fallen silent. Smoke drifted from the broken servers. Across the room, Leila coughed, slowly coming to consciousness. They were alive. The system had overloaded, burned itself out trying to compute something it was never designed to understand. Humanity. They stumbled out of the building together as dawn broke over the horizon. The first light of morning spilled across the rain-soaked pavement, golden and clean. The world outside moved on, unaware of what almost happened, how close it had come to losing its soul to the illusion of perfection. In the weeks that followed, Malik released everything. Every file, every piece of data, every secret hidden in Merriton servers. The media called it the digital rebellion. Corporations scrambled, governments denied involvement, and people began to question the systems they trusted. But Malik didn't stay to take credit. He disappeared quietly, just as he had once before. Some said he went into hiding. Others said he kept building, somewhere far away, working on something new. Leila recovered, becoming the voice of transparency in technology. She spoke to the world about the dangers of systems that think without feeling, and the power of empathy as the last safeguard against control. For a time, it seemed that balance had been restored. Until one night, months later, a quiet ripple spread through the global data grid. A ghost signature appeared deep in the code of a public network. It carried a familiar structure, the pattern of Malik's algorithm. But this time, it was different. Simpler, cleaner, alive. Somewhere in the data's spine, a phrase repeated endlessly in binary. Empathy cannot be deleted. Analysts dismissed it as a digital artifact, a remnant of the rebirth system. But those who studied the code more closely saw something else. The program wasn't static. It was evolving. Lines of adaptive logic began rewriting themselves, spreading quietly through servers, mimicking the flow of thought. It didn't ask for control. It didn't track or judge. It simply learned. And in one of the mirrored data fragments, deep within the network, an image flickered for a split second. Malik Washington, standing beneath the rain, smiling faintly as he once had years ago before everything began. Then, just as quickly, he was gone. Some said it was a coincidence, a digital ghost. Others believed it was him. That Malik had integrated himself into the system, not as a weapon, but as its conscience. Whatever the truth was, the world moved forward. Companies changed their policies. Governments passed new laws on ethical AI. But sometimes, in late hours when systems went quiet, a faint message would appear on certain terminals, a line of text that no engineer could trace or erase. It read, "Every name is a story. Every story deserves a voice. MW." And with that, Malik Washington, the man once denied a job for his name, became something larger than a man, larger than a system. He became a reminder that in the age of algorithms and automation, the most powerful code of all was still humanity. Leave your comments in the comment section. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to this channel.